Well, in January 25th, 2013, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that Quebec can continue to exclude common law couples from receiving spousal support upon the breakdown of a marriage. It's a big decision. It's a long decision. It's quite complex. You have to go through the analysis of whether or not the offending provisions of the Quebec law breached the Charter, Section 15, and then if you find that it did, was it a reasonable limit in a democracy? And essentially that's what it is. The Chief Justice McLaughlin reasoned that the province had provided convincing proof that the government had a solid rationale for its stance that the spousal provisions violate the rights of common law partners as little as possible. So the province had provided convincing proof that even though the provisions of the law that don't specifically accept common law spouses, that those provisions are violate the Section 15 Charter rights as little as possible, and that's Chief Justice McLaughlin. So she joined with the rest of the majority, who basically said that she was going along with them in the result. Anyway, I'm not being quite as clear as I can be because I'm not clear about it. To quote Chief Justice McLaughlin, "The law falls within a range of reasonable alternatives for maximizing choice and autonomy in the matter of family assets and support," the Chief Justice said. "While schemes adopted in other Canadian provinces impair the equality rights of de facto spouses to a lesser degree, such approaches would be less effective at promoting Quebec's goals of maximizing choice and autonomy for couples in Quebec." So we're talking about de facto spouses, not common law spouses. And there's actually a difference. Common law spouses, that's a type of spousehood, if you will. It comes about as a common law, and it's only something that happens in English provinces, not something that happens in Quebec. Quebec is the civil code. Anyway, in Quebec, there were three kinds of spouses. There's de facto spouses. There's civil spouses. And there's religious spouses. Religious ceremonies, as far as I can tell. It says here that Martha McCarthy, a lawyer for the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund, expressed shock at what she termed a, quote, regressive, unquote, decision that flies in the face of reality. Continuing with Ms. McCarthy, quote, "The decision shows a complete disconnect from the reality of people's intimate relationships," unquote, she said. And again, quoting, "Generally, people get married or live together in unmarried relationships because they love each other, not because they are making conscious decisions about which economic regime might suit them on separation." Ms. McCartney said that she has to explain regularly to unmarried couples that they have no right to property sharing regardless of how long they have lived with their ex-partner. Quote, "Unless an unmarried spouse has tens of thousands, likely over $100,000 for an unjust enrichment claim, she will walk away with nothing on account of the wealth accumulated over the course of the relationship." Again, that's Ms. McCarthy for this lawyer for the Women's Legal Education Action Fund. But in any event, what it appears is that here in Quebec, we can define our relationship. The government isn't, it's not up to the government to define our relationship. The government has taken a hands-off approach to it. And that was challenged in the Supreme Court of Canada under Section 15, which is equality. And no matter how their convoluted reasoning goes, they basically said Quebec can continue to do what it's doing, i.e. allowing de facto spouses to be defined by the de facto spouses themselves. So if I'm being cut off support, solidarity of the by the Quebec government, with no inquiry as to how I have defined my de facto spouseship with Tara, then that they are trying to make a relationship for us by finding out what's actually going on and make a definition of our relationship for us. Well, they never asked us. I mean, they haven't come about to tell us why, how they define spouses, where they came up with the idea of spouses. And indeed, in some of Quebec's laws that deal with pensions, the spouses, unless they've had a kid together, have to have been living together for 3 years before they're considered to be de facto spouses. But Tara and I haven't been together, when this decision was made, we had been together for about a year. I was asked once by Social Solidarity, which is the Quebec equivalent to welfare. I was asked once by my worker to explain the relationship between Tara and I, or make a statement on it, or a declaration. They have all these different words that mean different things. So I made a declaration. I told them the truth, that we had been living together in a romantic relationship, quote unquote, since May the 3rd, 2012. And indeed, effective June the 1st of 2013, 1 year later, the government, Quebec government, decided that we ought to be, or I ought to be taken off of my support because I have a spouse. I mean, the implication has to be that the Quebec government is trying to impute upon Tara an obligation to support me, when that's not an obligation that she has accepted. That's not an obligation that I've asked her for. I mean, can the Quebec government decide willy-nilly what our relationship is without asking? I mean, they asked. I told them we've been involved in a romantic relationship. Do they want to know now how many times we have actually slept together in the same bed? Do they want to know what we do together when we sleep in the same bed? Do I peck her on the cheek? Do I kiss her? Do I use my tongue when I kiss her? I mean, what kind of questions are these? It would be stupid questions. That's why the Quebec government, as a matter of policy, has left it within the purview of the individuals to define their own de facto spousalship, if you will. And that's why this decision is wrong, because they're applying their own definition, which is an unwritten definition, their own definition of what it means to be spouse, and what it means to be under an obligation to be supported, or what it means to be under an obligation to support. So that's all I want to say for now.